Great to see everyone here. He stole the first slide, so we don't need to introduce the first slide, but we'll just introduce ourselves very briefly. So I'm Chris Taylor. I'm not Hani, obviously. I'm Chris. And I work as an incident response principal at the moment, so very much on the blue spectrum of things. Myself and Hani have worked previously together in a designated purple team role, and we'll explain what that means effectively by the end of these slides. So, Hani, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. My name is Hani, Momenia. I'm head of Red Team at SAP UK, joined recently, and in my day-to-day, I run simulated attacks and try to replicate TTPs. And we're here to talk about purple teaming. This is a huge concept. People talk about it, so hopefully we can introduce the whole topic briefly.
Very briefly.
A lot.
Very briefly.
Very briefly.
So what we're going to cover today, we'll give you a brief introduction and explain what purple teaming is. So there's no ambiguity there. We'll explain what we think purple teaming is, and everyone can argue about it later. We'll talk about how to plan an engagement. So the most important step, how to actually plan it and get it signed off so people understand what the hell you're doing, because no one really understands what it is until you run it and it all goes wrong. We'll talk about how to execute the purple team itself. So some of the principles and guiding principles you can use to execute your first purple team. The reporting aspect to it, because everyone loves to read a good report. So how you can do a report that is actually appropriate to your organisation, to your customer, and how that can have the biggest impact. And then we'll just wrap up. So why we think people should be more purple, why the two teams, the two principles should meet in the middle, and then we'll have conclusion questions. So what is purple teaming? Purple teaming basically is it's a concept where red and blue come together. So traditionally, people are on one or the other. You're on the red team, we're on the blue team. We believe, and we've seen this in practice, that bringing the red team together and the blue team together, if you work for an organisation that doesn't have designated red teamers and designated blue teamers, you don't have to just act as the marshal between that. You can become a team that effectively do a piece of both. And bring those principles together to make security stacks better, to actually make defense in depth work, rather than just scraping through a penetration test once every 3 months to please your insurer. We believe that actually, as a principle, purple teaming it's a concept where, genuinely speaking, you launch your attack, you'll use your telemetry to actually build better defenses and run again. So I kind of hope that explains it. We'll explain some of the concepts behind it as we go through. So, why have we got?
Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, I'll just add something to what is actually purple teaming. Back in the days, a few years ago, everyone just do a pen test, do a red team, drop a report to a blue team. And blue team is so busy these days. They have thousands alerts coming to their system. They don't have time to deal with the report. So what they do, they just completely ignore it. And there's more red team. And red team is expensive because they need to have tools, infrastructure, and so on. So now here we are here to talk about purple teaming. This is a kind of a new thing that most of the companies moving toward, because it's more efficient and brings more value to the company than just do a red team, do a pen test, here's a report. There's 2 reports you haven't fixed from last year. Who cares? And then again and again. So purple teaming is about when you bring people together. So when the teams blue and red, they work together through one project. And their goal is to reach one destination, better security, as Chris said. So purple teaming, there's a lot we can talk about it, but we don't want to focus just on the theoretical part. So later on, we tell you what's involved to be a purple teamer. All right. So purple teaming in a nutshell, there's a lot of companies using different frameworks. If you go to any small, medium, or large companies, they have these complex process that you need to do this, A and B and C, and this is how the purple teaming looks like. But to simplify it, we want to show you what the purple teaming look like. So the purple circles, this is the ones that the purple team, red and blue, work together. And the ones that are red, it's just an offensive operation. What we're trying to do in the next few slides, we divide into 3 sections, and we try to explain them and give you more details. What's involved to do, for example, attack planning, attack emulation, or what happened in the reporting section, and so on.
So we'll talk briefly about how to plan the engagement and how to build up an actual meaningful purple team for the organisation or customer that you work for. So it looks really boring because it's planning and everyone hates planning and report writing. But effectively, these are some of the most important steps to actually get your stakeholders involved, for people to understand what you're trying to achieve, what those risks are, and how you've reduced those risks to make sure that you're providing the absolute best possible purple team. You're getting the better telemetry. You're increasing the defense of that organization. So the first step is obviously brainstorming. What are you trying to achieve? Have you written down your plans so that your stakeholders know what you're going to do? What does success look like for your purple team? What does failure look like? What exactly, and how are you going to do it as well? So get the ideas down on a piece of paper. That could be a workshop, just writing it on a whiteboard. You need to understand where you're going to gain valuable CTI, what kind of tools you're going to use. Really plan out your engagement way before you start engaging those stakeholders with definitive, that's what we're going to go and test. We'll just get some code off GitHub, we'll run it, and we'll see what the defenses pick up. That really doesn't make sense, and it's not the way to win over your audience to make sure the purple team's successful. The logistics side of things, obviously, is selecting your tools, making sure that you have the staffing and the capability to run this. Do you have people used these tools before? Do they need practice before you run it? Another major point here as well is when you're planning your purple team engagement, do you plan on running against live systems? Are you going to be running against our network, and how comfortable is that organization with you doing that? Because there's absolutely no value in running a purple team campaign against a fresh image of Windows. It just doesn't make sense for the organization. You need to run against the applicable environment and show how you're building better defenses for their security stack. So adversary profiling, again, we won't cover this too much, but again, how are you going to get that CTI data? Which adversaries are applicable to your environment? CTI is absolutely crucial to run the proper purple team campaign. You need to understand what the attacker would do in that environment at that time. And that profiling could be that you effectively, you can gain quite a lot of free information out there, but is it relevant? Does the stakeholder care? Is this attack even going to be applicable to your organization? So you really need to understand how to build better adversary profiles. Tabletop exercise. So this is part of the IR function at the moment of running through your attack pathway together. So bring your stakeholders together in a room and test their IR plan before you even run a line of code. Talk about who would respond, how would they respond, what does the comms plan look like. It just makes perfect sense that while you've written all of this documentation and planning down, why wouldn't you verbally hand it over before you run the actual software and attack? And some of the constant challenges we see is a lack of buy-in. You'll be given the go-ahead and the green light. You'll build these massive plans. You haven't explained it to your stakeholders and how you've done your risk management, so it just collapses. Or poor logistic planning. You assume that customer is going to provide you with the tools and software to use, and then before you know it, they turn around and say, we're not willing to accept that risk. So planning really is the most important aspect to this.
All right. So we heard how important planning is. A good planning, it gives me less stress and less white hair and less red wings. And this is really important. When I want to do an engagement, I read the plan. I need to make sure the plan is solid. But the fun part, well, a lot of people say it's the fun part, which I feel is really stressful, is the actual execution. So what do you exactly do in a purple team? Like developing capabilities. There's a lot of people, they're trying to buy a piece of software and say, this is a whole purple team engagement. They just run it and that's it. This is a purple team. But actually developing capabilities, we need to understand what type of staff and skills we have in a team. Do we have people who understand networking, API security? Do we have people who actually understand CTI and so on? And do we need infrastructure? If we're doing a purple team engagement, is that just one machine to another machine? Or if we've done it in production or a testing environment, we need to make sure that our infrastructure is up and running and is ready. And you have a backup. This is something a lot of purple teamers, they don't consider it. Do you have a backup plan? If you do testing or production, if something goes wrong, can you bring it back? Is it going to die? Is it going to impact the business? How much going to cost the business and so on? And building capabilities comes with price. There's a lot of times you do a purple teaming, you use a software like open source. We have Caldera, this execution framework. We have a reporting tool like Vector. They're all open source you can use. But how stable and how efficient they are? There's a paid one that you can buy, but those paid one comes with heavy price, I can say. We negotiated some stuff in past, and they were asking for a lot of money. It's not just really cheap to buy those softwares. And when it comes to coverages, do we have coverage when we do purple teaming? We can't just do purple teaming in like one area. We need to make sure that, what about the legacy systems that are part of the network? What about the machines that they can't have an EDR on them? Because when you run an ADI agent on them, they crash because they don't have enough memory. Maybe they're running on Windows XP for some reason. When the last talk, they were talking about some old programming languages or some software written for banking that you can't even run a purple team engagement on them. When it comes to attack emulation, as I said, the business impact is really important. You can't ignore saying that, well, we're going to run this piece of malware that we found from APT in Russia, for example, and I hope everything's going to be fine. You need to have a deep understanding what you're running on the system. And the emulation is, another thing is about the emulation side that we need to make sure we always talk to each other. It's really hard these days to communicate between red and blue because team are international, they're working from home, no one want to jump on a Teams car for some reason because the dogs or the kids are screaming in the background. I understand those privacy, but when it comes to purple teaming, the best purple teaming I've seen so far is the one that they were in the office, the whole room for themselves, and they were talking to each other. If you can't do that, I understand. I work SAP. My team is international. We have a Slack channel. We always talk to each other, screenshot this, and we have a live logs that we can just monitor. So those kind of things are really, really important. It's better to communicate before you just do something like, well, I didn't know about that. Yes, you can ask. And give an update at the end of the day to your stakeholders. Just you're doing a purple teaming. Don't wait until after 6 months saying that, well, we've done a purple teaming. It was okay. It was a disaster part of it. Give them an update every single day. This is what we learned. This is what we executed. And this is what we, seen. So it's good to keep an update with them. And it comes with, again, challenges. Challenges when it comes to no formal planning. When is the start date? When is the end date? We have a solid plan. Chris was talking about how important to have a solid plan. Planning is the one that is a lot of people confused because there's a lot of people who want to get involved. People are taking other people's duties. Oh, did you run this script before? Oh, let me run it again. Those kind of things we don't want to happen in a purple teaming. We want it to be controlled and we want to make sure that it's kind of sanitized environment. You don't want people do the same thing over again. And there's a lot of challenges. Again, my list is over, but I want to make sure that we can cover everything in this slides. There are other things that is a gray area and black boxes. There's some systems, when you do a purple teaming, IT comes to you and say, well, do purple teaming. I completely support you, but do not touch that system. Like, what is in that system that we don't want us to touch? Those black areas that they put it in the report saying that, well, we don't want to touch that one because we know it's Windows 7 and we are planning to upgrade it. But when you do a purple team engagement, that system is out of scope. Those kind of things is going to damage the whole purple team result. And how real is real? If you're doing a simulated attack, let's say in an APT group in China, they're doing fantastic stuff. They're doing this TTPs that we never seen before. And they also kidnapped this sysadmin. We can't do that. I can't just go to knock the sysadmin door and say like, yes, part of our engagement, we need to kidnap you for 2 days, but we provide hotels and stuff. It doesn't work like that. How real is real? You need to understand what's the expectation from a stakeholder. So when they say, you've done a purple team engagement, perfect. But what's how real is that? Is that exactly the way that people like APT in Iran doing it or not? So we need to make sure we communicate that. There's a lot of expectation when it comes to purple teaming. Right.
Yeah, and I think the thing we're trying to drive at here is to be more scientific, to be really scientific about what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve it. So capturing the telemetry as you run the attack, not trying to think back, what time did I click that link? What time did this happen? You need to be capturing those notes like this is almost like you're going to present it to court. You need to be really forensic in how you execute your purple team because we've had it before where we've been blamed for something going wrong. Oh, you were running a purple team at the time. Well, we weren't. So instantly those business leaders, they might not appreciate or understand what you're doing and they'll jump to the assumption that purple team is at fault. You need to keep those notes. You need to validate your detection strategies. And just because, the fanciest EDR that you've got in your environment caught one of the actions that you did, that's not failure. That isn't failure. That's validating the tool that works. And then your next step is to test the next line of defense. So, whitelist it on the EDR and run further down, because your threat actor will constantly be evolving their malware. They will get through the EDR at some point. So why aren't you then testing the next line of defense? You shouldn't just be relying on a line of defense. You should be testing and testing and testing and constantly going through your security stack. So you've got as much telemetry and as many alerts as you can possibly get. But yeah, thanks for that, Hani. Just another point on how real is real as well is the expectation of the business. Do they expect you to be writing 0 days? Do they expect you to be going up against the best EDR that's been finely tuned for 12 months? Is that the expectations? Because everything's going to take a lot more time. Or do we just whitelist against EDR and test the next line of defense? And that's the thing with the formal plan. That's why you need to plan. You need to engage your stakeholders. My clicker isn't working. So the last part then, so the reporting stage, the one that everyone loves to do. Everyone loves to write a report and read one. But this is your opportunity to shine. This is your opportunity to prove the value of the purple team and why you need to undertake these and why a penetration test is no longer good enough. I'm sick to death of receiving penetration test reports that are effectively a quality scan. Absolutely sick to death of it. That's not what a penetration test is. You now differentiated penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, red teaming, blue teaming. No, a penetration test in the eyes of insurers and all this kind of stuff should be more than that. But as a company, we just slide through because we pretend it's something it isn't really. Penetration test is vulnerability scanning in this day and age. You need to go further than that if you're going to take security seriously. So this report really is your opportunity to show what you did, how you did it, the value of doing it, and it should be applicable to your audience. So if you're writing a report together and you want it to go to a technical team, an infrastructure team, so they understand what you've done as a blue teamer and a red teamer, write a technical report. Write it with as much technical detail as you can possibly get. Don't hide things because you're worried about how it will be received or the politics of the organization. You're meant to be agnostic. You're meant to be scientific. It's not your problem if a security feature that they thought they had failed. It's the opportunity there to write it down and get it fixed. And again, if you're talking to business leaders, get to the point quickly because they're a bit like moths. Their attention span is low. So you need to get to the point really quickly. What was the point of the purple team? What did it do? What's the next one? So that's really the focus of the report. It should be easy to do. It should be relatively quick to formulate if you've been capturing your notes and you've had good control of what you've been doing and how you've been doing it, and your scoping is correct. It should be relatively straightforward and simple. And again, those are the challenges. The report's too big. No one reads it. It's boring. How are you engaging your audience? Feedback. No one likes to give feedback. I was like, well, how have you tried to get them to do feedback? Again, case in point of the talk from Tim just before this one, is the expectation that the human should change, or should we change our behaviour to bring on board the human effectively?
All right. Yeah. So when it comes to logging and stuff, make sure you take everything. When we've done purple team engagement, the timing was a different. So some companies, they have team international. They have people Europe, US and stuff. If they don't agree on a specific time, someone can see the log in a different time, in different part of the planet, and they were like, well, we found this log exactly on that time. We'll mess up your report. So make sure you agree on a time saying that if you want to find a log, make sure this is a time zone that we use. This is one of the things. And capture everything. Logs, operating systems. Do not rely on Microsoft to collect the logs for you because they don't. Maybe they send it for themselves. Who knows? But use the tools, every single thing you have. You have Sysmon, you have all this tool that you can collect everything that you have. Collect everything. Even if you don't use it, it's good to have it because later on you might use it. So why we should go purple? There's a lot of benefits if you actually go purple. This is not all of it, okay? The silos are removed. There is no barrier between a blue or red, okay? Everyone can work together. Everyone can learn from each other. There were so many times I came from a red side. There's so many times in a purple team engagement. There's a lot of things that I didn't know about how to blue teamers think. And in that case, we learn something from them and they learn something from us. And this is the best education you can get. There's a lot of courses out there, expensive. You can go there. But if you learn from examples, that's the best way, because when you learn from example, you never forget it. So staff with different skills are working together. They're feeding information to each other. This is really good because they help your organization to grow faster in purple teaming. And yeah, you know what? It's too much notes. I'll forget about it. So purple team is all about testing people and process. So you don't want to do a purple team and saying that, well, we found these systems that are actually secure. And we're fine with that. Purple team is all about testing the people. So how long it takes them to respond to a cyber attack? If they see a phishing campaign, blue teamers, how long will it take them to react and what they do after that? So you're not testing the machines. You're not testing, this is a Windows or Linux machine that's really secure. You're testing the process. This process is really important because when it comes to threat actors, they don't really care just about your system. They're looking at people's personal life, their LinkedIn. They do a lot of OSINT. They have a lot of money, resources, and knowledge to do whatever they want to do. So when you do purple teaming, we're trying to just embed like people and process into it. Measuring security in a relation. So you don't want to do a purple teaming in a certain time. Let's say in June you do a purple teaming for 3 months. And then next year, there will be a new threat actors. Are you going to repeat the same actors that you've done last year again? Yes, you need to do that as well because people change their system. There's new upgrades and so on. So you don't want to be fixed in one specific time. If you look at the threat actors profile, some of them, they're reusing techniques. So APT, like 42, they use this technique that APT 22 actually used it. And it's really interesting. So we want to have the repeat testing and trying to generate a report that reflect next 2 years or next 3 years. So you want to make sure that the report is continuous report and you do the testing over and over again. Make sure your defenses, the last talk was talking about you put a massive firewall. Back in the days, I came from a Cisco background. You buy these Cisco firewalls, expensive ones that you put it there, and IT thought that this is the defense, this is security. But when it comes to purple teaming, you're not trying to just test EDRs. What about assumed compromise? What about if the company is already being compromised for months? What after that? How many defense layers do you have? This is always remind me the whole things about Shrek. Shrek was saying like, Shreks are like onions. Security is layers. How deep you can go to that network and so on. And also make sure that the CTR that you're using is the latest and cutting edge. Purple team people are people who are always learning. Every time I go to engagement, I learn something new. I just never go as, master of everything, or I know everything. I go, it's like, I don't know anything. So make sure that you use your CTI, not just, the CTI said this way. Make sure you twist it. Try to just change it in a way that your company is working around it. So don't try to just take everything from the CTI, put it on your system, like what doesn't work, trying to always change stuff. So a lot of benefit of doing purple teaming, we can talk about it for the whole day. And we're not here to sell you purple teaming. We're here to tell you like how important purple teaming is.
Cheers, Hani. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we'll wrap up now, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. But effectively, from the talk, we hope you've learned that planning should really take most of your time and effort. That should be the hardest part. Get the plan correct. Always engage the stakeholders early and communicate. One of the issues we do find is that the red and blue split is almost adversarial to a point where they don't work together. You actually need to work together and talk. Otherwise, you're not purple, you're still red and blue. You need to communicate. You can't be hiding things, and you learn from each other. There's so many principles I've learned from working with red teamers as a blue teamer. You can't get the full picture without actually communicating and collaborating. And again, failure is another type of success. So yes, the EDR caught it. So what? Okay, well, let's test the next line of defense. Or yes, an alert was genuinely and appropriately escalated and you got locked out of the system. So there's still plenty of opportunity there to do something else and extra. And reporting is, whilst planning is the hardest part, reporting is the most important part. Like anything in cyber, if you don't seem to write it down, then the business leaders don't care. So you need to actually formulate a report that those business leaders are going to care about and continue to support your purple teaming efforts. Hard metrics, scopes and deadlines. So in your plan, this shouldn't be rolling on for months and months and years and years. You need a hard stop. You need to say what success looks like, because otherwise you could be chasing down rabbit holes, trying to get through a system. You need to move on. Cyber is very quick in pace. Things are constantly evolving. You need to evolve with it. and develop actual recommendations. So the issue we always find is we beat X system, right? And the business leader, all he's thinking is, how much is this going to cost me? You need to actually say what the solution to that is. What can that business leader do? And don't recommend £100,000 worth of purple teaming tools. That's not what he wants to hear, or she wants to hear. They want to hear actionable, this is what we can do with the resources we have. So what's the gold standard, silver standard, bronze standard? What can we achieve from this? So, I'm out of breath. Hani can take all questions. No, that's everything from us, really. We hope it's exactly what you were expecting from a Purple Team presentation. We weren't going to show you a live Purple Team because it would take us ages. But yeah, have we got any questions from the audience? That's perfect. No questions. Let's go.
That's great.
Go on then.
There's a lot of talk and trend from outcomes
So the Purple Team version would... so again, what we are seeing, like you say, is people are buying a red team from an outsourced company, or they're buying a penetration test and they're getting it done once every 3 months because they have to. They don't respect it. They don't want to change it. The Purple Team, and again, you can develop your own Purple Team internally using junior staff. They will develop with that company and understand that company. So the whole point of it is that continuous integration of testing. We do it with code. We do it with patching. It's a continual process. I don't really understand why, red teaming or penetration testing is a one-off event that is just slipped under the net to say, we've got it covered. And to be fair, a lot of business leaders, what they'll do is they'll scope it down to the point where they know what success looks like. So you'll have a penetration test against the most rock-solid part of the network. That's not really an accurate representation of that network, though, is it? So for us, Purple Teaming is meant to find those dark places in the network, those failures, and it's meant to strengthen them. It's bringing together all the actual principles of cybersecurity into an organisation environment. And again, we're not here selling anything. The point is, this is a process. This is what people should be aiming to achieve in their environment, working together. Go on.
My question is, you talked about learning.
Yeah.
If someone from the blue team or red team like you join a purple team, what they should unlearn?
Unlearn?
That's a good question.
That's a very good question. Well, I can say there's no such thing as unlearn. Well, there is a couple of things that we don't tell the blue team because we are testing the process. We say, like, for example, when we do this engagement, you saw the circles. There is a blue one, there is a purple one. The purple ones are there. They're part of the planning. But when it's come to execution, we don't tell them exactly when is it. We say, like, the next 6 months is a purple team engagement. So otherwise, if you say that, they will stay there with 10 coffees on the table. Okay, this is a lot. This is them. This is 100% on them. Let's block them. This is not. We need to blend in. Okay, so we need to understand what the business looks like. For example, if you do a purple team for an organization that you've never been, you're trying to understand the business. All right, so how do you do stuff? Okay, when is your promotion month? When is like the emails comes from HR people for bonuses and stuff? Oh, can we send an Excel macro for bonuses? People gonna click on it? That would be great. So we're trying to just kind of blend into the business process. We're not trying to just tell them like, oh, we run. Sometimes we do. We're like, okay, we're trying to run this. Can you see something? Tell us. Okay? And how do you react on it? But sometimes we try to test them saying that we run it in the last 3 months. You didn't see it. It's fine. No one complaining, but let's learn from it. And then we move on because we're not here to punish the blue team and the red is not there to try to show off saying, oh, we've done it. You couldn't see us. That's great. Is healthy environment. We're trying to just build a healthy environment. Everyone learn. There's no unlearn, it's more learning, and there's always something to learn.
I would say the only thing that the real eye opener for me was that the red teamers aren't necessarily bad guys and they don't know everything. They're not already in your system, and that's the assumption is that the blue, again, it's adversarial, red or against blue, and that's what we try to break down there is you're not adversaries, you're meant to be working together because the goal is the same. Method of operation is different, the goal is the same.
Better security.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a view of kind of what level of visibility that the purple team is going on within the organisation works best? So obviously, like a red team, the idea is that no one really knows it's happening apart from a very small defined group. Within a purple team, it's collaborative, but at the same time, some of the things you might want to try, you don't want the whole organisation knowing you've got something going on. So is there kind of a sweet spot, I guess, of
I would say so. Yeah, it depends on the maturity of your organisation. I think you have to get that on board and success early. So initially, you don't want to, perfect. This will be the last question, if that's okay. Right. But yeah, you don't want your organisation to not know who you are. You don't want to be the guys like in the IT crowd in the basement, not known about. You want to be front and centre, so it's becoming part of the organisation's maturity model. But eventually, yes, you want to run a little bit more like the red team to keep things a little bit quiet on a need-to-know basis. So I would say start, you brag about it, everyone knows about it, everyone knows what you're going to do, and gracefully move towards a more mature model of it's business as usual, you're just doing your job, and the report comes out and the stakeholders get it.
Just one thing I want to add is that for people who couldn't ask us questions, we'll be around and we'll be after party as well. So ask us thousands of questions. That's the whole reason I came all the way from London here. So come on and talk to us, and we'll be more than happy to answer more questions.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.